One of the biggest topics of discussion, or I guess violence in the Texans community this offseason, or I guess like since O'Brien got fired, has been the whole argument on whether the Texans should hire a defensive minded head coach or an offensive minded head coach. Now, the people that believe, or at least most of the people that believe the Texans should hire an offensive minded head coach, they're pretty open minded to the idea of a defensive minded head coach. But there is some people out there on the Texans in the Texans community that are just so close minded to the idea of the Texans not hiring a defensive minded head coach. Like, these people only believe that the Texans should hire a defensive minded head coach, and if they don't hire a defensive minded head coach, that the Texans made a bad decision. And look, personally, I believe the Texans should hire an offensive minded head coach. But I am definitely open to the idea of them hiring a defensive minded head coach, if that coach is Matt Eberflus. And, I've even seen some people that are Robert Saleh fans that have said that they're open to the idea of hiring, I don't know, a Joe Brady or a Brian Dable or something like that. But there is this certain group that just does not accept anything else than a defensive-minded head coach. And look, whether you think the Texans should get a defensive-minded guy or an offensive-minded guy, everyone has their own opinion, and that's totally fine. But I'm going to give you my own opinion on why I think the Texans should go an offensive-minded head coach. And don't worry, I will put out like a revised list of my top candidates probably later this week. We'll also have like a season recap later this weekend. Probably some other stuff later this week as well. So yeah, it's gonna be a pretty fun week for us. But here's the reasons why I think the Texans should hire an offensive-minded head coach, whether it's Eric Bieniemy, Joe Brady, Mike Wazowski, Brian Dable, Greg Roman, like whoever it is. I think the Texans should hire like one of those great offensive minds that is like, a head coaching candidate, like maybe like a Bill O'Brien or something. But, I think the Texans should get an offensive minded guy because, to me, at the end of the day, the most important thing on this team is John Weeks. No, it's Deshaun Watson. Now, Deshaun Watson, he is your quarterback. He is like the best player on your team. I mean, you guys saw the numbers he put up this season. You guys saw what he was doing this season. And now look, one of the arguments that the defensive-minded people have been throwing out is, well, Deshaun Watson showed this year that he can, do good whenever, wherever. Yeah, probably. You probably can. But why in the world would you choose to not build around your most important player? Like, it would make no sense to, like, pretty much ignore Deshaun Watson and, let's go get a defensive guy, F Deshaun Watson. Because, like, Deshaun Watson, what he needs is stability. When Deshaun Watson got drafted, he was drafted by Rick Smith. Rick Smith, later on, he left to attend to his wife, and then they hired Brian Gaine. And then Brian Gaine, 8 months later gets fired, and Bill O'Brien becomes the GM. And now they're on the search for their fourth GM in, 5 years. Yeah. OCs. How many OCs has he gone through? Technically, Bill O'Brien was his OC when he got here. And then Tim Kelly. Now he's saying he wants Tim Kelly back. But odds are Tim Kelly might not be back. So he'd be with, 3 OCs. And then, his second head coach. Deshaun Watson in 5 years would have seen 4 GMs, 3 OCs, 2 head coaches. You can't have that. When you have a franchise quarterback, you can't keep switching, important pieces around him like that. And if they hire a defensive-minded guy, guess what? They're going to keep on poaching his OCs every single year. Do you really want Deshaun Watson to like pretty much have to learn new offenses every single year? Or say, that's not the case. Let's say, we hire Robert Saleh and then he brings in like the LaFleur's and then like they start creating like their own, coaching tree where like they just keep on promoting from within. Let's say that keeps happening, because I know some people are going to bring up that argument. Yes, that can definitely work to an extent, but it'll still be a different person in Deshaun Watson's ear every other year. Like, you don't want Deshaun Watson to have to go through that. Like, why in the world would you, choose to do that to your franchise quarterback? Instead, you go get an Eric Bieniemy, he's probably going to call the plays, or you go get a Joe Brady, he's probably going to call the plays, or you go get a Michael Sowski, he's probably going to call the plays. Like, do that instead. And now look, I know these defensive people are going to say, whoa, the Texans defense freaking sucks. Why in the world would you choose an offensive-minded guy, get a defensive-minded guy, and fix the defense? That is one of the worst arguments I have ever seen or heard in my entire life. I mean, we don't even have to go that far. Gary Kubiak, offensive-minded guy. He hired Wade Phillips in 2011. From 2011 to 2012, 2 years, Texans defense dominant. Bill O'Brien, offensive-minded guy, hired Romeo Crennel. From, 2014 to 2016, Texans defense dominant. Chicago Bears, a few years ago, Matt Nagy, offensive-minded guy, hired Vic Fangio. From 2017 and 2018? Dominant defense. What's his name? The LA Rams, or, I think at the time, no, definitely LA Rams at the time. But LA Rams, Sean McVay, offensive mastermind, hired Wade Phillips. Dominant defense for a couple seasons there. And even this year, dominant defense. Like, hiring a defensive-minded coach is not the only way to have a good defense. It's not. You can hire a good defensive coordinator and have a good defense. Romeo Crennel, when O'Brien hired him, he was once upon a time considered a legendary defensive coordinator. Guess what? For a few seasons there, like 3 years, Texans defense was dominant. So, all the Texans have to do is go hire a good DC. And you know what? Guess who's available? Gus Bradley was formerly coaching with the Chargers. Anthony Lynn just got let go. Gus Bradley's available. Dan Quinn, terrible head coach, yes, but a good DC. Go hire him. There is other options. There is different ways to build a good defense than just hiring a defensive-minded head coach. In fact, hiring a defensive-minded head coach does not guarantee you're going to have a good defense. It's not. Exhibit A, Mike freaking Vrabel, defensive-minded guy, goes to Tennessee. They have one of the worst defenses this year. Some people are going to say, but Sticky, Mike Vrabel was not a good DC in Houston, so it's not going to translate, so it's not the same thing. Well, okay, fine. I'll take that argument. But what about last year when Mike Vrabel wasn't calling the plays? Their defense was still god-awful. It doesn't translate like that. And I'm not saying the same thing doesn't apply to, OCs and them coming to Houston and, implementing their offense. I'm not saying that getting an offensive guy is going to guarantee that the offense is going to be amazing, but aren't you the same people that are saying that Deshaun Watson can make anyone look good, and Deshaun Watson in the offense is gonna ball out regardless? So hey, I mean, I'd rather Deshaun Watson have stability while balling out regardless rather than him having instability at his, OC position. Because at the end of the day, like I said, Deshaun Watson is the guy you want to build your team around. Deshaun Watson is, the guy that's going to lead your team to the Super Bowl. Like, why in the world would you bring in a defensive-minded guy to build up a defense? Like, who in the world are you going to build a defense around? Brandon freaking Scarlett? Come on, dude. Like, you build around Deshaun Watson. It's not that hard to comprehend. Like, quit overcomplicating things. Like, just get an OC. Get an offensive-minded guy. Get freaking Brian Dable. Get Joe Brady, Eric Bieniemy, Mike Wazowski, Greg Roman. It's not hard. It's not. But, yeah, that's my opinion on this whole offensive-minded head coach versus defensive-minded head coach. And, yeah, comment down below your own opinion. Do you think we should get an offensive-minded head coach or a defensive-minded head coach? And, yeah, be sure to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.